Okay, so moral behavior, this is the process of reinforcement, punishment, and imitation, and how it affects how individuals learn moral behavior. The effectiveness of reward and punishments, if you know anything about learning, you know it depends on consistency and timing. The reward has to be close in time to the event. The effectiveness of modeling depends on the characteristics of the model and the cognitive skills of the observer. So if you're like talking about donating to a charity, the kid is going to have to understand why you're donating to a charity. If I was trying to explain this to Leif, he's 3 years old, he's not going to understand those things. So he's not going to be able to model that behavior. Behavior is going to be situationally dependent. It's individuals, there's a lot of contradictions involved with people. So they do not consistently display moral behaviors in different situations. Kids will lie, cheat, and steal in a variety of circumstances. So you got your home, you've got your school, you have social events, you have athletics. There's all these different places. And so some places they may cheat, some places they may steal, but they might not do it in all of them. Related to this is the social cognitive theory of morality, and so it emphasizes a distinction between moral competencies and moral performance. Moral competencies, what the individuals are capable of, what they know, what their skills are, their awareness of the moral rules and regulations, and their cognitive ability to construct behavior. And the moral performance is going to be the actual behavior. So we talked about this in the last slide, the idea that there's a difference between what you say and what you do, sometimes in relation to morality. With the moral performance, the actual behavior is determined by motivation, rewards, incentives. Bandura, we've talked about before, he stressed that moral development is best understood as a combination of social and cognitive factors, especially those involving self-control. We've talked about self-control a lot too throughout the course. It's very important. It's going to be related to executive function. Again, very important. So that is the social cognitive. When you get into moral feelings, this is going to be a Freudian type analysis, that guilt and the desire to avoid feeling guilty are the foundations of moral behaviors. Researchers have examined the extent to which children feel guilty and when they misbehave. Young children are aware of right and wrong, and they have the capacity to show empathy and pro-social behavior towards others. They experience guilt, they indicate discomfort following a transgression, and they are sensitive to violating rules. So this is young children that are aware of all of those things. It is going to be related to empathy, reacting to another's feelings with an emotional response that is similar to the other's feelings. It is an emotional state, but it has a cognitive component, the ability of perspective taking. We've talked about it a couple times now, discerning the inter-psychological states of another person. Changes in empathy take place in early infancy and at 1 or 2 years of age, in early childhood, and at about 10 to 12 years old. There are these different levels of them building empathy. And so figure 3 kind of goes into this a little bit. Damon's description of developmental changes in empathy, if you would like to read through this. On the contemporary perspective of the role of emotion in moral development, many contemporary developmentalists believe both positive and negative feelings contribute to children's moral development. When strongly experienced, emotions influence children to act in accord with the standards of right and wrong. On moral personality, so these are thoughts, behavior, and feelings that all be involved in an individual's moral personality. They talk about identity, character, and exemplars. On moral identity, the aspect of personality that is present when individuals have moral notions and commitments central to their lives. And so behaving in a manner that violates this personal moral commitment they have places the integrity of the self at risk. Basically, you think, I'm a good person, but if you do something that you think is bad, you think, am I still a good person? And it causes an internal conflict. And that conflict, the idea of thinking about what you're doing and what you're feeling and all these type of things, this is going to be something we talked about several times, metacognition. Self-monitoring, self-reflection. You want to try to minimize your bias and your self-deception. So if you're like, I'm a good person, but I do all these bad things, you got to think about that. On moral character, this involves having strong convictions, persisting and overcoming distractions and obstacles. It presupposes that the person has set moral goals and that achieving those goals involves the commitment to act in accordance with those goals. So you have the goals and you have like the gumption to go out and try to achieve those moral goals. Moral exemplars, probably like you've already figured out, they have lived like these exemplary lives, and you can look at them and go, okay, these are people I could look up to, like an upward social comparison. This is something that I can try to take away from some of the things they've done and apply them to my lives. They have a moral personality, identity, and character. They have a set of virtues that reflect moral excellence and commitment. Examples you've probably heard of before, like Martin Luther King Jr. All right, in the next set of slides, we'll get into the social cognitive domain theory.